Hey YouTube people, it's Frame225. Today I'm doing something a little bit differently from what I normally do. I'm vlogging / responding to someone else's video. The video I'm responding to is from a guy named Entertainment Hero. I'll have a link to that video in the description of this one. Basically what Entertainment Hero was saying in the video that he made was that he was talking about the Mega Man franchise and how it's gotten like completely terrible, what with Rockman Zover being terrible, the iOS port of X being terrible, and Legends 3 getting cancelled, all of those horrible things that were happening to Mega Man. And he basically, well, like for 8 minutes he was talking about all of these horrible things happening very recently, and then for about 18 minutes, he goes on this tirade about how Battle Network sucks and apparently it ruined Mega Man forever. Which, and I'm not joking, he was like talking about the plot of Battle Network, how the characters are bad and all of this stuff. While, you know, with Battle Network, I'm a huge Battle Network fan, so while I do agree that they sort of, what Capcom does with anything, Mega Man, Street Fighter, it doesn't matter, when they see that they have a hit on their hands, they will just make as many games, as many sequels as they possibly can. They'll make as much merchandise as they possibly can. They do this with Street Fighter, they do this with Mega Man in general. And with Battle Network, I think what got their gears turning is that they figured they could turn Battle Network into the next Pokemon with, like, the different versions later on in the series. And they just kept making all of this merchandise, all of these animes, all of these action figures and battle chips and all this other stuff. But to put all of the blame for Mega Man's problems on one series of spin-offs is very much fallacious in my opinion, because I mean, most of the complaints you could have about Battle Network you could say are problematic in other Mega Man series as well. I mean, look at like Mega Man X7, which is completely terrible. It was buggy, it had the worst voice acting ever. There was like way back when there was Mega Man 5, which had the most boring weapons and bosses ever. There was those Game Boy games. There was even Star Force, which I didn't like, even though it was a follow-up to Battle Network. But what I'm saying here is that you can't just say, like, Battle Network was awful and it ruined everything, which clearly it wasn't awful because it has its fans. There's a ton of Battle Network fans on both sides of the Pacific Ocean. And even though Battle Network has its duds, everything has its duds. The most worthless Mega Man game ever is Battleship Challenge. Yeah, Battleship Challenge sucked. What are you, surprised or something? To address some of these specific points in Entertainment Hero's video, he apparently thinks Network Transmission is a good game because it's a 2D platformer Mega Man game, and apparently the rest of Battle Network is not that good because it's a series of RPGs. I have a Let's Play of Network Transmission. You should probably check that out and see how good Network Transmission really is, because it throws back to the worst aspects of classic Mega Man far more often than it does anything good. It was also very weird to see Entertainment Hero claim that Proto Man's name loses all meaning in the Battle Network universe, even though Proto Man is called Blues in Japan, so there was no meaning to lose. They probably should have renamed Proto Man in the US, but for the Battle Network games, but I digress. Also, Roll and Gutsman are far more prominent than Entertainment Hero would have you believe, because Roll can be summoned with a battle chip. Gutsman can be fought in all of the games except Battle Network 4 Blue Moon. And he helps Mega Man like all of the time. Like, you would just have to play a little bit of you would just have to play through any of the games to see Gutsman doing stuff. Well, I guess except Battle Network 4, but Battle Network 4 is terrible. Like, Battle Network 4 is the one Mega Man Battle Network game that I will never, ever defend because it's completely terrible. Never play it. I'm warning all of you now. Also, Entertainment Hero has apparently seen the ending to Battle Network 1 where the big reveal comes up that Mega Man is actually Lan's twin brother who died at a young age, but then he goes on to say, like, oh, they put Hub's soul into a net navigator and made Mega Man off of that. No, Mega Man just has Hub's DNA. Did you even read the ending? Yeah, that was my thoughts when I was watching this. I've got nothing against the guy because I literally just found out about his channel 5 minutes ago, but, like, when you say stuff like that and, like, don't research it anyway just because you have this vendetta against Battle Network for no reason, you know, I've got to call people out on that. It's my favorite franchise. Please don't do that with it. And, like, one of his other complaints was that the combat was fine, which, you know, then why are you complaining about it? Oh, he says that in the Dark Chips and the Soul Unisons in the later games just made it not as good. Well, first of all, Dark Chips were invented in the worst Battle Network game ever, Battle Network 4, and so were the Soul Unisons, but some people like those. And, you know, it's a matter of opinion, I guess. And the other thing is that if you want to play those games in multiplayer, then you can just have you and your opponent agree to not use the things. Like, there's this thing called banning, which they do in Pokemon all the time. It was also very amusing to hear him comment that Battle Network 6 has no Easter egg or anything when you insert it into the GBA slot while playing Battle Network 5. Yeah. So yeah, I just laughed my butt off at that one, but... And another thing is that he was also examining the characters and the plot and how bad all of that stuff was. People don't play Battle Network for the plot, I think. If people played Battle Network for the plot... You know, Capcom... I think I've said this before already in the span of 7 minutes or so, but Capcom doesn't have very good writers. Do they? No, never. So people play it for the combat, because the combat is fun. People don't play Pokemon for the plot, they play it for the Pokemon designs, and the battling. Competitive Pokemon battling is huge right now. And Battle Network, competitively, Battle Network wasn't that big, but it had... Competitive Battle Network wasn't that big in its day, but it had the following for a while there. There was no easy online variant of Battle Network to play until Star Force 2. And nobody liked Star Force 2 because it was horrible too. Like, I don't really know why they would end Battle Network if they were just going to start up Star Force anyways. But, yeah, I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that you can't blame Battle Network for everything bad that happens to Mega Man when Capcom repeatedly makes the same mistakes with other franchises and other series of Mega Man games. Like, if they hadn't rushed X6 or X7 or X8 or even X5 and X4, I think the X series would still be doing fairly well. If they hadn't, like, made so many of the classic NES games within the span of 5 minutes, maybe they would have turned up an excellent, good quality game. Have you noticed that ROM hacks like Rockman Minus Infinity are so excellent, and they weren't made by Capcom? Like, admittedly, Rockman Minus Infinity has the advantage of, like, having basically half the work done for you, because, like, all of the sprites are there and the engine is there. But the guy who made Rockman Minus Infinity, he just put so much effort and work into really reinventing the game. That's something you don't see with Capcom, like, since X1, Battle Network 1, Mega Man 0, 1. And it's not like that those are my favorite games. My favorite games are actually X2, Battle Network 2, and Mega Man 8. That's gonna get some people yelling at me, I bet. So this whole talk was just me trying to valiantly defend my favorite RPG series, Battle Network. Because it's a really good series of games. I mean, I can get how Mega Man fans when Battle Network came out, Capcom was just like putting so much effort into it and ignoring everything else that I think that really hurt the feelings of longtime Mega Man fans who are more fans of the side scrollers and everything. And if that's the case, that's a fine point to make, but you can't just go around like saying how bad Battle Network is and how the low quality ruined everything when it was really just Capcom sinking all of their time and energy into Battle Network with their usual amounts of laziness. Because look at any Capcom game and you'll see that there are rough edges everywhere, unless it's like Street Fighter or something. Anyhow, that's all I wanted to say. This has probably gone on for a little too long, but that's really all I wanted to say. It was interesting to hear another Mega Man fan at least talking about how Mega Man games have just run into this spiral of doom and demise, and we're never going to get another Mega Man game ever again, or at least not another good one ever again. They're still pumping out those virtual console releases, so that's nice, at least in Japan. Yeah. So anyhow, that's all I wanted to say. I'm hoping that this video will at least generate discussion, because discussion is always nice. Anyway, this is Ephraim225, and see you all on my next Let's Play, whenever that is.